first of all, we went on to exploring as clearly, as we look at the physiology of not only the GI tract, but also, as we said, these pathologies. When we talk about IBS, there is a very strong mind, so neuro component as well. And so we went first at looking at, for example, the changes that there are at the receptorial level, and then at the level of serum of endocannabinoid presence. And for example, of the difference between CB1 and TRPV1 expression following childhood stress, for example, and how that very often, it's related to a decrease of CB1 expression and an increase of TRPV1, which often results in many of the symptoms that are experienced by IBS sufferers. So in a sense, we challenge, we don't just talk about cannabis actually in this paper. What we talk about is trying to start to think about IBS as something that we can tackle, even at first line, with modulators of the endocannabinoid system. So it's interesting, of course, to look at some molecules of cannabis, like, for example, CBD, for its activity on fatty acid amide hydrolase, because as we know, if a CBD blocks, inhibits FAAH, then of course we're going to have higher levels of anandamide, which in terms can actually go and help some of the neuro, so more like mood issues that we see. But the changes that we witness are actually more that really take the whole endocannabinoidome. So we didn't restrict just to some of the classic cannabinoids. And in this sense, you mentioned at the beginning, for example, the similar endocannabinoid palmitoylethanolamide, and on there was quite consistent from one end how patients, for example, suffering from IBS actually have dysregulated levels of several cannabinoids, but especially of PAH, which at a very interesting level of specificity, even defining what type of IBS actually they are, depending on the type of dysregulation on PIA. And then at the same time, there's been, because PIA in many countries is a nutraceutic, can be sold without prescription, so it's a way easier compound to investigate than something like THC. So actually on there we even have a bit of data coming from clinical trials that actually was very promising on not only managing some of the issues of IBS, but actually in some instances potentially even going to rescue, because the idea with the study of the endocannabinoid system is in the pathologies in which there is a clear dysregulation, the big question is, can we do something on this physiological system to arrive to a sort of rescue? One of, for example, of the lifestyle modification that we proposed, we just didn't talk just about pharmacological compounds. We believe that also, we believe based on literature, scientific literature, but lifestyle modification, simply like exercise, but even meditations / hypnosis, depends from which part of the world you're watching. One of the two is probably just comes to your ear better, actually can have a massive role in pathologies that we still call, the old school still call as a psychosomatic. So yeah, I just wanted to close by saying that perhaps it's a little restrictive as an industry to look at the interaction of the endocannabinoid system merely done by a plant. Then I have no doubts whatsoever that we're still not even tapping the potential of the plant, because as we know, the plant, it's full of incredible compounds that we still haven't tackled. But when we look at the endocannabinoidome, there is so much more that we can do than just looking at the plant. Actually, I can be doing on this physiologic system without even having to touch cannabis.
On the microbiota, we can just say that by modulating the microbiota, we can modulate the endocannabinoid tone in the gut. And then conversely, by modifying the endocannabinoid tone in the gut, we can change the microbiota composition. All this effect and all we talk about, especially in the gut, reminds me, and this is my conclusion, remind me the words of the ancient Greek philosopher and physician Hippocrates, who used to say that all the diseases start from the gut. This is all.
And I think it's worth mentioning, since it's a work I really, really admire that you published a few years ago. Actually, this I think shows it very well on how the depletion of the microbiota has an incredible direct effect on our mood, on our states, and how we can potentially also do the rescue of a depressive state with a healthy gut. And in this, the endocannabinoid system for sure has a huge role. We did touch this topic quite a lot actually on a clinical handbook we are putting together for physicians. If you want to know more on the topic and of course on the related topic, because then there is the application in pathologies of what we're saying.